Hello, everybody. It's your old pal Jerry V, and this is going to be another installment of the Tales from the Stacks. Sorry that I missed you guys last night. We had some little last minute things come up, but I didn't forget about you folks. So we're going to get right into the Tales from the Stacks this week. Together, we have been reading Ruby on the Outside, and I would like to give special thanks to Nora Raleigh Baskins and Simon and Schuster Books for Young Readers. Those are both your author and your publisher for allowing us to read this to you during this pandemic time. So we've gone through a lot about this story. We're about halfway through, ladies and gentlemen. So if you haven't had a chance to see some of what's going on or hear what's going on in this, please go back and check out some of the past videos and get acquainted with what's going on with our friend Ruby Danes. She's going through a lot of things. She's changing her life. She's changing her school. She's meeting new friends. She's got some things going on in the background. She's got some stuff with her mom. So if you guys get a chance, please go check out those past ones. If you're in a hurry and you don't want to wait for me or you want to check this book out, it's called Ruby on the Outside. And it's available from your friends here at PCCLD. So without further ado, we're going to continue on with Ruby on the Outside. We are on chapter 13. I still have that teddy bear. The one the woman gave me. The police officer, the night my mother was taken, was arrested. I don't touch it. I can't bring myself to get rid of it. It's still got the stiff red ribbon tied around its neck. I don't think Matu knows why I have a teddy bear on my top shelf. She, of course, wasn't there that night, so I don't have to explain it to her. We lived in Saratoga back then. I don't even know where Matu lived. I didn't even see her back then. I don't even know. I didn't even know I had an aunt until they took my mother away. I was only 5 years old. I remember a few things, like remembering a movie you saw a long, long time ago that you weren't paying attention to in the first place. Still, sometimes in the dark, against my will, when I'm trying to fall asleep, snapshots start coming into my head. Nick and my mother were fighting. I could hear them from my bed. I didn't think much of it. I mean, I hate it, but they fight all the time. The scary part was if Nick lost his temper, if he broke something, or if he grabbed my mother's arm and left fingerprints, dark bruises on her skin. I would hear her crying. But that night, after the yelling stopped, it just got quiet. When I heard my mother's footsteps come near my door, I quickly turned my head to the wall and pretended to be fast asleep. I could tell she was looking at me, listening. I tried to make my breathing slow and even. She walked away from my bed, out of my room, and she carefully closed the door behind her. A few seconds later, I watched the car lights move across the ceiling and down the wall. I knew they had driven away. I wasn't afraid. Not really. I was tucked into my bed, safe in my room. The door was closed. I waited. And I waited. I must have fallen asleep because the next thing I remember was the sound of our front door cracking off of its hinges, splintering, cracking and breaking, booming, shattering, and men's voices and bright lights shining under my bedroom door. The sound of things falling, drawers opening. I could hear it. I could hear walkie-talkies and shouting, footsteps, voices that weren't my mother's and weren't Nick's. I froze. Every sound shot through me, sinking me deeper and deeper into my covers. I was alone. I was alone. Then my whole room lit up when my bedroom door flew open. It's okay, sweetheart, a woman's voice said. It's okay. The policewoman handed me a teddy bear, and nothing was okay ever again. Then everything's just a big blank of fog until I remember living with Mattu here in the condos at Mount Kisco. I had no idea. I had no idea how either me or my stuff got here. It's like there's a big chunk of time that just disappeared. I suppose for a while we were all lost, and then slowly, it started to be home. I didn't ask any questions, but I was vaguely aware that being here had something to do with my mother being where I couldn't visit her easily. So when she came home, we were ready soon. And when soon never happened, the past fell away, along with all those meetings and phone calls, lawyers and plea bargains, court dates, babysitters, more meetings, more phone calls, another trial date, a new lawyer, another trial, sentencing, 20 to 25 years. Then I started school and I had to figure out my new teachers, new kids, where the bathrooms were, who to sit with on the bus, who not to sit with. I had to learn spelling and geography. I learned to be quiet and listen, not get into trouble, if at all possible, so I could report back to my mother every week. All good things, nothing bad. And my worlds, though they were 5 miles apart, divided, like the continental shift we were learning about in our social studies. Hopefully, never to meet again, inside and outside. Real and unreal trade places, and then they trade back again. Somewhere during all that time, Aunt Barbara becomes Matu. Now, it's just my house, where I live. My bed, my dressers, my books. Not much from my old life, except that teddy bear. Chapter 14. Matthew doesn't make anything homemade, but you'd think from the way that Margaret was going on that there was no better chocolate chip cookies than the ones that she was having for dessert. Oh, wow, these are so good. Can I have another one? Matthew looked kind of happily astounded, as she passed the box across the table. Of course, sweetie, but they're just Entenmann's. Oh, I don't know, but they're so good. My mother never lets me have these at the store-bought. I mean, not like she doesn't let me. She just never buys them. They're amazing, but don't tell her I said that. We all laughed. I guess you never know what you should be grateful for. Matthew asks Margaret a lot of questions, which is something I've never do because if you ask people questions, that leaves you open to their questions about you. But I see that Matthew has techniques too. Her technique is to ask as many questions so the other person doesn't have a chance to ask you a question. Besides, she's really good at remembering everything a person tells her, which is probably why she is so good at her job at the doctor's office. Everyone likes her because she remembers their name and anything they tell her. Pretty clever, I must say. And so far, it's working. We know all about Margaret's mom and dad and what they do for a living. what kind of car they drive, where their mother learned to cook, what kind of art the grandfather does. But I noticed Margaret staying away from mentioning anything about her brother. I understand. I haven't said much about anything until I suddenly make one of my infamous dumb statements when Margaret tells us about where she lived before she moved to Mount Kissock. Why haven't I heard of Glen Falls? I blurted out. Because, Ruby, Matthew says, you used to live because Ruby, Matthew says, you used to live right near there in Saratoga. Oh? A warning light went off in my brain. A little late, however, because Margaret was all over this one. You did? You live near Glen Falls? Margaret says. Where? Usually, when I tell people where I'm from, they've never heard of it. It's not far from here, really. When did you guys live there? You guys didn't live there, just me and my mom. It was a really long time ago, Matthew answers quickly. She pats both of our hands on the tabletop. She pats both of her hands on the tabletop firmly. Well, that's it. Do you girls think you could take out Lulu for a walk before it gets too dark? Oh, really? I'd love to. Can we? Margaret jumps up and forgets all about Glen Falls. But I don't. You can just look it up. Rebecca had all the answers. She was older than me, and she had been coming to Bedford Hills Children's Center much longer. She had had both of her mother and father in jail, and she knew a thing or two about jails and prisons, parole hearings, clemency boards, and, well, pretty much everything that when I first met her, she scared me. She was one of those tough girls. You find them everywhere, not just in prison. I heard that there are plenty of tough girls in middle school. The ones that sneak out of the cafeteria and hang out in the bathroom, leaning on the wall or blocking your way to the stall. I heard some girls hold their pee all day because they're too scared to go. Because after I got to know her, Rebecca really wasn't like that at all. She just wanted other kids to think she was. Look it up. Look what up? I asked her. We're both sitting in the seats inside the trailer. It was raining, and instead of making us wait outside, getting all wet, like we usually have to, they let everyone pile inside a trailer and wait. There was a little corner with little kid seats and some old books. Rebecca looked funny sitting in those little seats. I bet I looked funny too, but she must have been at least 13. And it was just a little while after Tevin stopped coming. You can look it all up, she says. Go on the internet, Google your mother's name, and it's all public record. Court documents, newspaper articles, even transcripts of the trial if you know where to look. If you know how to search. It seemed funny to me now that I never thought about doing that. But at the time, it seemed perfectly normal. Do you do that? I asked Rebecca. I knew that her dad was in jail too. She had told me that she had visited her dad in prison in Ossining, which made Bedford Hills look like a 5-star motel. Sure did, Rebecca told me. When I was about your age, maybe a little older, like around 12. I learned everything, and let me tell you, it wasn't pretty. I could see Matthew sitting on one of the regular seats by the door, waiting our turn to show our papers and our birth certificates. empty our pockets, sign the papers, and begin the process all over again for the 100th time or more. It doesn't matter if you've been here once or a million times. It's the same thing every time. What? I asked Rebecca. What isn't pretty? Well, let's just say criminal justice is an oxymoron. And I have no idea what she meant, but I could tell she was getting angry. But I knew better than to ask. Tevin talked, but most kids don't. And you never ask. You just don't. You just don't talk about like that at the children's center. Nobody asks stuff like, what'd your mother do? Do you think she's guilty? Do you think she did it? Or if she did it, do you think she deserves it? I never thought like this. Why would I? I can't change it. Matthew says, the past is the past. What good is going over it gonna do? What good is talking about it gonna do? So, you're glad you found out? I asked Rebecca. She got quiet for a bit. She didn't answer me, but I could tell whatever she found out wasn't what she thought was really going on. Let's just say the conversation with Rebecca didn't exactly inspire me to run home and do the same thing. At least, not that day. But after Margaret went home, stuffed on Entenmann's, I stayed up in my bed and worked on my story. I mean, our story. I touched my pencil to the paper at least 5 times. I realized I can't think of anything to write or draw. Margaret and I are both supposed to write a whole new elf chapter before camp tomorrow. But I'm stuck. Is this what they call writer's block? I can't even think of the name of my character. I have the story notebook propped on my knees, under the covers, all cozy for the night. My teeth are brushed, and the house is quiet. I start. Under the green, green grass, I begin. No, not under the green, green grass. You can't be under the grass, can you? Deep, deep in the dark woods, Edgar the elf makes his journey. Edgar the elf is stupid. I don't like that, so I erase it. Peter the elf. Nah. Josh. Josh the elf. Josh. Josh Tips. Why is that name stuck in my head? Glen Falls. Why does that come into my head? Saratoga, Glen Falls. Glen Falls, Saratoga. Josh Tips. I can't write. My brain won't let me think about anything else. I look over at my computer on my desk. It's off for the night. Our computer teacher says it's better to leave it on sleep mode. But Matsu can't stand leaving anything plugged in. She unplugs the microwave when we're not using it. She even turns off the router at night. So computer waves can't penetrate our brains while we're sleeping. But sometimes she forgets. I slipped out of my bed and into my desk chair. The computer hums to life when I press the power button. If the Wi-Fi's still on, the internet availability will come on and show full access. It'll take a while for everything to boot up and come flying onto my screen in bits and pieces. The internet is working. I open Safari, type in my mother's name and Josh Tips into the search box while the little icon loops in a circle. I hold my breath. Well, everybody, looks like Ruby's about to go and find out herself what she's got going on in her life. So hopefully you'll join me and find out what she finds out in the next installment from the Tales from the Stacks. For your friend here, Jerry V, and all of us here at the Pueblo City County Library District and the Lucero branch, we miss you. We wish you guys are doing well. Come in, see us. My friends, Miss Jessica and Miss Britt, also do some cool virtual stuff. So please, please, please keep track of us and keep tuning in. So for Jerry V and Tales from the Stacks this week, thank you very much. Peace out, everybody. Bye.